For the Kirchhoff's law, so we have Kirchhoff's voltage law and then Kirchhoff's current law, o yung tinatawag natin na KVL and then the KCL. Where Kirchhoff's voltage law, when we say Kirchhoff voltage law or the KVL, state that the voltage applied to a closed circuit is equal to the sum of the voltage drop in that circuit. Or in simplification, for that definition for the KVL, so let's say example, so we have 3 resistors connected in series, kasi dito. So this fact that used in the study of series circuit and was expressed as follow. So we have the voltage applied is equals to the sum of the voltage drop. Kasi for the KVL, the voltage applied to a closed circuit is equal to the sum of the voltage drop in that circuit. Simplification for the equation, so we have B applied or the voltage applied is equals to B1 plus B2 plus B3. So therefore, meron dyan in a circuit, in series circuit, meron dyan R1, R2, and then R3. In a closed circuit, so therefore, meron kang load, meron kang path, and then meron kang source. So this is considered in the equation as the voltage applied. R1, R2, and then R3. Now, for series circuit, so we have the equal ang kanyang current. So therefore, it's equal ang kanyang current. And then, meron siya ngayong voltage drop for each component. For each component na yan, so for resistor 1, merong V1, and then resistor 2 as voltage drop across resistor 2, and then voltage drop across resistor 3. Now, for this equation, for the definitions, the voltage applied in a closed circuit is also equal to the sum of the voltage drop across each component, or in that circuit. So therefore, for the equation, the summation of the voltage drop across the circuit is also equal to the voltage supply. Or, for this equation, voltage applied is equals to V1 plus V2 plus V3. The other definition for the KVL is the summation of the voltage across the circuit is equals to 0. Okay? Like for this equation, i-transpose mo lang siya for the equation nito. So, ibig sabihin, lahat daw ng voltage dito sa isang circuit is equal to 0. Okay? For the summation of the voltage. For the KVL, so therefore, VA minus B1 minus B2 minus B3 is equals to 0. So this is for the equation for the KVL. Example number 1 for the KVL. So we have the voltage applied is equals to 100 volts, and then ang binigay dito ngayon is the hindi resistance value, kundi yung voltage drop across each component. For V1, 50 volts, V2 for R2 is 30 volts, and then for R3 is equals to 20 volts. Now, for the KVL, nilagyan ngayon niya ng polarity, although alam natin, for the resistor, is wala siyang polarity. So, yung polarity na nilagay dyan is assumption ng flow ng current. Now, it's either yan is conventional flow or electron flow. Conventional from negative to positive, and then electron from positive to negative, or clockwise direction or counterclockwise direction. Now, for this illustration or for this example, ang flow ng current natin is in clockwise direction. Nakaturo siya dyan, pakanan. Okay? Now, for the assumption ng flow ng polarity na ilalagay mo ngayon sa resistor, so, ang pinakatanda niyaan, for this arrow, for the current, yung arrow tail na yan is considered as the positive. And then for the arrowhead is for the negative. Kaya siya may positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. Then, for the battery, alam natin, ito ay yung mas mahaba is the positive polarity and then yung mas maikse is the negative polarity ng ating voltage supply. Now, gawa natin ngayon ng equation yan. For the equation of the voltage applied is equals to the voltage across each component or the summation of the voltage drop across each component. So, V1 plus V2 plus V3. Prove natin for the definitions of the KVL. Na sabi, for the voltage applied is also equal to the summation of the voltage drop across each component. The voltage supply is equals to 100 equals to V1 is equals to 50 volts plus V2 or the voltage drop across resistor 2 is equals to 30 volts plus voltage drop across resistor 3 is equals to 20 volts. Now, for the summation, 50 plus 30 plus 20 is equals to 100 volts. It's also equal to the voltage supply. Now, the other definitions of the KVL is the summation of the voltage across the circuit is equals to 0. For this equation, voltage A, station ng current mo, negative to positive. So, therefore, your voltage A is positive. Okay? Now, pumasok sa positive, lumabas sa negative, kaya siya minus B1. Pumasok sa positive, lumabas sa negative, that is minus B2. And then, pabalik sa source, positive, negative, so minus B3 is equals to 0. Substitute the value, voltage A or the voltage applied is equals to 100 minus 50 minus 30 minus 20 is equals to 0. So 100 minus 50, negative 30, negative 20 is equals to 100. So therefore, the summation of the voltage across the circuit is equals to 0. Okay? So that is for the KVL. For the KCL naman, or the Kirchhoff's current law, Kirchhoff's current law states that the sum of the current entering the junction is equal to the sum of the current leaving the junction. Suppose we have 6 current leaving and entering the common junction or in point or shown as P. So this common point is also called node. Okay? Now, for example, so we have 6 current entering and leaving the junction. For this junction, ito yon. Okay, so ang tawag natin dyan is junction or node. Now, for this example illustration for the KCL or the Kirchhoff's current law, I1 is in entering the junction. Entering the junction is positive. So, I1 is positive and then leaving the junction is negative. Okay? Now, I1 is entering the junction, positive, leaving the junction, negative, I2. Palabas yung arrow niya sa node. And then I3 is entering the junction, so plus I3. I4 also entering the junction, so plus I4. I5 leaving the junction, minus I5, and then I6 is entering the junction, so plus I6 is equals to 0. Now, the other definition for KCL, aside sa sum of the current entering the junction entering the junction is also equal to the current leaving the junction, or the summation of the current along the circuit is equals to 0. So, pagsasamahin na rin natin yung entering the junction and then leaving the junction. Ano yung mga entering the junction? I1 plus I3 plus I4 plus I6. For the definitions of KCL, entering the junction is also equal to the leaving the junction of the current. Parang yan. So, yung leaving the junction is I2 and then I5 and then transpose. So, I2 from negative magiging positive. So, I2 plus I5. So, this is the other definition of the KCL. Or, the current along the circuit is equals to 0. Okay? Example, number 2. Since number 1 natin is for the KBL. Now, for illustration letter A, I1 is leaving the junction, I2 entering the junction, and then I3 is leaving the junction. Now, determine the current of I1 where I2 is equals to 7 ampere, and then I3 is equals to 3 ampere. Equation. I1 is leaving the junction, so therefore it's negative I1. And then I2 is entering the junction, plus I2. I3 leaving the junction, negative I3 is equals to 0. Substitute the value. Negative I1, where negative or I1, hahanapin natin yung value ng I1. I2 is equals to 7 ampere. So, 7 ampere. And then I3 is leaving the junction. So, minus 3 is equals to 0. Transpose si I1 para makuha natin yung value niya. So, 7 minus 3 is equals to negative, magiging positive. So, I1. So, therefore, the value of I1 is equals to 4 ampere. Checking natin. For the summation of the current along the circuit is equals to 0. Using this equation, negative I1 plus I2 minus I3 is equals to 0. Substitute the value, where I1 is equals to 4. I1 is leaving the junction, so minus 4. I2 entering the junction, plus 7. I3 leaving the junction, minus 3 ampere is equals to 0. Positive, negative, negative. So, 7 minus 7 is equals to 0. So, summation of the current along the circuit is equals to 0. Okay, that's for the checking. Now, for the illustration ng letter B, so we have I1, I2, I3, and then I4. Now, for this problem, or this circuit, so I4 is walang value. So, gawa ulit tayo ng equation. I1 is entering the junction, therefore, that's positive. I1 positive, I2 entering the junction, plus I2, I3 is leaving the junction, minus I3, and then I4 is leaving the junction. So, consider natin siya as leaving the junction. Okay? So, minus I4 is equals to 0. Okay? Substitute the value. And then, si I4, since ang hinahanap natin ng value, i-transpose na natin for this equation. So, I1 plus I2 minus I3 is equals to I4. Okay? Substitute the value. I1 is equals to 2. I2 is equals to 3. So, plus 3. I3 is equals to 4. Minus 4 is equals to I4. So, 5 minus 4 is equals to current 4. The value of the current 4. So, equivalent to 1 ampere. Checking. For this problem, so i-check natin ngayon for the equation. It's either leaving the junction is also equal to the entering the junction. Gawin natin yon. For the entering the junction, I1 plus I2 is equals to leaving the junction, I3, and then I4. So, plus I4. So, dapat pareho sila ng value. Kasi, the summation of the current entering the junction is also equal to the current leaving the junction. I1 is equals to 2. And then, I2 is equals to 3. So, plus 3 equals, I3 is equals to 4. And then, I4 is equals to 1. So, plus 1 equals to 5 ampere, also equal to 5 ampere. Okay? Now, for the other definitions of KCL, so we have the current along the circuit is equals to 0. Ito yung gagamitin natin na equation. So, I1 is entering, I2 is entering, I3 is leaving, and then I4 is leaving the junction is equals to 0. So, I1 is equals to 2, plus I2 is equals to 3. Then I3 is equals to 4. It's leaving, so minus 4. I4 is leaving, minus 1 is equals to 0. So 5 minus 5 is equals to 0. 0 is equals to 0. That is for the KCL. So paano naman ngayon for this example number 3? So, Kirchhoff's voltage law and then Kirchhoff's current law or the Kirchhoff's law is ginagamit natin or isa siya sa mga network theorem na pwedeng gamitin to determine the current along the circuits and then the voltage drop across each component kapag ang ating circuit is more on complex and then meron na siyang 2, 3, or 4 na voltage supply. Okay? And then, hindi mo ma-determine ngayon kung series connection ba siya or in parallel connection. Okay? Now, for this example, the voltage A is equals to 58 volts and then voltage B is equals to 10 volts. Now, meron ngayon siyang R1 which is equals to 4 ohms, R2 is equals to 3 ohms, and then R3 is equals to 2 ohms. Now, dito may nakalagay na ngayong polarity. Kasi nagkaroon ngayon dito ng assumption ng flow ng current. Na assumption ng flow ng current na si I1 is entering the junction at node N. And then I2 is also entering the junction. And then si I3 naman is leaving the junction. So, gagawa ka ngayon ng equation ngayon dito para malaman mo kung ano yung value ni I1, ni I2, and then ni I3. Gawin natin yung for the equation. Now, ang unang mong gagawin dito ngayon is lalagyan mo ng polarity yung mga resistor mo. Para malaman mo yung pagbasa mo dyan is either in clockwise direction or in counterclockwise direction. Ngayon, kapag gagawa ka ngayon dito ng equation, kung clockwise ka dito sa isang node na to, dito, clockwise ka din. Okay? Or in this mesh. So, mesh ang tawag natin dito. Ito yung node, ito is tawag dito is mesh. For this mesh, kung clockwise ka dito, ang direction mo para mabasa mo or makagawa ka ng equation, dito rin clockwise. Ngayon, kung counterclockwise ka dito or electron flow, dito ka rin, electron flow ka din. Okay? Clockwise direction tayo. So, for this, mesh 1, and then, mesh 2. Okay? For the KBL, so KBL at mesh 1. So, consider natin siya as mesh 1. Okay? For the KBL. So, lalagyan mo ngayon ng polarity. Kaya may nakalagay na ngayon dyan na polarity. Para malaman mo yung polarity naman, itong assumption ng flow ng current mo, kung pasok siya ngayon, so yung arrow tail is positive and then the arrowhead is negative. Kaya siya ngayon dito, positive, negative, papasok. Ito rin, positive, negative kasi papasok siya sa node and then ito man palabas. Kaya ang positive niya nasa taas and then negative na sa baba kasi yung arrow niyan ito. Okay? And then ang pagbasa mo ng equation, pakanan. Clockwise direction. Pareho sila. So, ito, hindi mo na kailangan yung isipin kung ano yung magiging negative or positive niya kasi automatic na to. Na ito ay battery. Na pag mas mahaba, positive, mas maiksi, negative. Okay? Equation tayo for KBL at mesh 1. Mag-start ka ngayon sa voltage A, positive, negative, pumasok sa negative, lumabas sa positive, that is positive voltage A. Okay? Then, pumasok sa positive, lumabas sa negative minus. Okay. So, this is KBL. So, ilalagay mo yun dyan, current 1, R1. Saan mo ngayon nakuha yan? Yung current na dumaan kay R1 is, i-consider mo siya as I1. Si I1 and then R1. Ohm's law. Current multiplied by the resistance is the voltage. So, kaya siya in KPL. Okay? Pakanan. Baba na tayo. So, positive, negative. Minus, ano yung current niya? I3. I3 multiplied by, ano yung resistor niya? R2. So, R2, pabalik ka na sa source, wala ka ng resistor dito. So, nakaklose na yung ano mo, equation mo, equal to 0. Voltage A is equals to 58. Minus, wala kang value ni current 1 kasi yun ang hinahanap natin. So, meron ka yung value ni R1 which is equals to 4 ohms. So, ilalagay mo dyan 4I1 minus R2 is equals to 3 ohms is equals to 3. Ano yung current niya? I3 is equals to 0. Now, pwede mo ngayon gawin dyan, ito na yung equation mo, o kaya naman, para madali yung elimination natin mamaya at ma-determine yung mga value na I1, I2, and I3, pwede mo na itong ilipat si voltage supply or A sa kabila. O kaya naman, ito na lang yung magiging equation mo. Okay? So, consider natin to as equation number 1. Next, for the mesh 2 naman, mesh 2, dito tayo sa kabila, for the mesh 2, para makuha natin yung iba pang equation. For mesh 2, pwede kang magsimula sa R2, sa R3, o kaya naman sa voltage B. In clockwise direction, ang basa kasi clockwise direction ka dito. So, KBL at mesh 2. Okay? At mesh 2. Dito tayo magsimula sa voltage B. For the voltage B, from positive to negative. So, magiging minus voltage B. Kasi pag ganun. Okay? Clockwise direction. Dito ka nagsimula, hindi ka pwede magbasa ng negative to positive kasi magiging counterclockwise ka. Clockwise ka dito. So, kaya siya positive to negative. Kaya negative voltage B. Now, pag ganon, so negative, positive, so magiging positive, I3 R2 kasi current 3 and then resistor 2. Tapos, pag ganon, pabalik. So, negative, positive. So, ito ay magiging positive. Current niya is 2. And then, the resistor niya is R3 is equals to 0. Substitute the value. Voltage B is equals to 10. So, negative 10. Plus, I3, wala kang value. So, meron kang value ni resistor 2 which is equals to 3. So, magiging 3 I3 plus 2 I2 is equals to 0. Then, arrange mo ngayon. Unahin mo si 2 and then 3. So, minus 10 plus 2 I2 plus 3 I3 is equals to 0. So, consider this as your equation number 2. Ayun. Hindi ka ngayon magkakaroon ngayon ng elimination para makuha mo yung I1, I2, and then I3. Kasi ang equation number 1 mo is I1 and then I3. While equation number 2 is I2 and then I3. Okay? So, pwede mong eliminate ngayon yung I3, pero, meron kang equation para kay I1 and then I2. So, hindi mo pa rin makukuha. It's either makuha mo yung value ni I1 or ni I3. Now, gagawa ka ngayon pa ng isa pang equation para i-substitute mo. It's either sa equation number 1 or equation number 2. Saan mo kukunin yun ngayon? Dito ngayon yun sa assumption ng flow ng current mo na I1, I2, and then the I3. I1 is entering the junction. So, magkakaroon ka ngayon dito ng isang equation to KCL. KCL at node N. Kasi N yung nilagay niya dito for the node or yung junction. I1 and I2 is entering the junction. So, therefore, positive silang pareho. I1 plus I2. Now, si I3 is leaving the junction. So, therefore, it's minus I3 is equals to 0. Now, kuha ka ngayon dito ng pwede mong i-substitute sa equation number 1 and then equation number 2 as equation number 3. Okay? Para magkaroon ka ng equation and then the elimination. Gamitin natin ngayon si I1. And then, ito, si I2 and I3, ililipat natin sa kabila. Na, sabi, di ba? Kapag entering the junction is also equal to the leaving the junction. Pero ang gagamitin ko ngayon dito is si I1 is also equal to I2 and then I3. Pero mababago ang polarity niya kasi nilipat mo siya. So, from positive magiging negative I2, negative magiging positive I3. So, consider natin to as equation number 3. Okay? Now, through this equation, pwede mo na ngayon i-substitute yan. Saan? Yung may I1. Ito, kay equation number 1. Substitute natin. Substitute equation number 3 to equation number 1. Ano yung equation number 1 mo? 58 minus 4I1 minus 3I3 is equals to 0. Then, substitute itong equation na to. 58 minus. Ano yung I1 mo? Ito daw yun. Yung ginawa mong equation. So, 4, I1 is negative I2 plus I3. And then, ito, isulat mo. So, negative I3 is equals to 0. Then, multiply. Okay? So, 58, negative, magiging positive 4 I2, and then negative positive minus 4 I3, and then, eto, negative 3 I3 is equals to 0. Pareho silang I3. So, ipagsamahin mo sila. So, 58 plus 4 I2, negative 4, negative 3 is negative 7, I3 is equals to 0. So, consider this as your equation number 4. Okay, so meron ka na ngayon equation number 4. Na magkakaroon ka ngayon dito ng elimination. Kasi, si equation number 2 is I2 and then I3. Equation number 4 is I2 and then I3. It's either sa kanila ngayon, kung i-eliminate mo si I2 or si I3, makukuha mo yung value niya nung isa, and then isa-substitute mo sa ibang equation para makuha mo yung value ni I1 or ni I3 or ni I2. Okay? Substitute natin. Now, equation number 1 is 58 minus 4 I1 minus 3 I3 is equals to 0. So, this is equation number 1. And then, equation number 2 is equals to negative 10 plus 2 I2 plus 3 I3 is equals to 0. Then, this is equation number 2. For equation number 3, nag-substitute ka ngayon. Diba? Na ginawa mo na si I1 is equal to negative I2 plus I3. Na itong equation na to, na sa equation number 3, isinubstitute mo ngayon, and then nag-come up ngayon for equation number 4. Ang kinalabasan for the equation number 4 is 58 plus 4i2 minus 7i3 is equals to 0. Ito yung equation number 4. Now, equation number 2, pareho siyang may i2 and then the i3. Okay? Gagamitin ngayon natin to for the elimination. It's either si i2 or si i3. Now, eliminate, it's either i2 or i3. Eliminate ngayon natin si i2. Eliminate i2 using equation number 2 and 4 para makuha mo yung value ngayon ni i3. Ano yung equation number 2 mo? Negative 10 plus 2i2 plus 3i3 is equals to 0. Equation number 4, 58 plus 4i2 minus 7i3 is equals to 0. Now, paano mo ngayon mai-eliminate yan? Si i2. Na si i2 is 4 and then yung isa is 4 and then yung isa naman is 2. Gagawin mo yun dyan, kukunin mo yung it's either the least common denominator or the greater common denominator. So, pareho sila na mag-i-equal sila into eto, na si equation number 2, pag minultiply mo siya ngayon sa 2, mag-i-equal siya sa 4. Okay? Pero, positive siya, kaya mag-a-add lang sila na magiging positive 8. Anong gagawin mo? It's either ngayon, i-add mo siya, or the operation mo is addition or subtraction. Yan. Para magkaroon ka ngayon dyan ng elimination. Pwede rin naman si i3 kasi si 3 and then si 7, ang common denominator nila is 21. So, equation number 2, imumultiply mo sa 7 and then si 7, for equation number 4, imumultiply mo sa 3. So, baka cancel out din sila kasi positive and then negative and then your operation is positive. So, ang nilagay natin na condition dito is eliminate i2 to determine the value of i3. Okay? Now, so multiply. So, i-multiply mo ngayon dito yan si equation number 2 sa negative 2. Okay? So, i-negative 2. So, magiging yan, negative 2 multiplied by negative 10 magiging positive 20. So, positive 20 and then multiply negative, positive, magiging negative 4i2. And then, negative, positive, magiging negative 2 multiplied by 3 is equals to 6. So, 6i3 is equals to 0. And then, i-write mo ngayon dito yung equation number 4 mo. Ano equation number 4? 58. So, 58 plus 4i2 minus 7i3 is equals to 0. Pwede ka na ngayon mag-eliminate. Then, the operation mo is addition. Add. So, ito, add siya. So, 20 plus 58 is 78. And then, negative, positive, ibig sabihin, cancel out na siya. And then, negative 6, negative 7, equivalent to negative 13. I3 is equals to 0. Transpose 78 sa kabila. So, negative 13, I3 is equals to negative 78. Kasi positive siya, magiging negative. Then, divided by both side by, ano yung kasama ni I3? Si negative 13. Negative 13, negative 13. Cancel, cancel. So, therefore, I3 is equals to 6 ampere. Okay? Now, nakuha mo na ngayon yung value ni I3. Pwede mo na ngayon yan i-substitute. It's either sa equation number 1, equation number 2, para makuha mo yung value ni I1 and then ni I2. Okay? So, the value of I3 is equals to 6 ampere. So, pwede mo rin siyang i-substitute is either sa equation number 1 or equation number 2. Ano ba yung equation number 1? Sulat natin. So, 58 minus 4i1 minus 3i3 is equals to 0. And then equation number, this is equation number 1. Equation number 2 is negative 10 plus 2i2 plus 3i3 is equals to 0. So, this is equation number 2. It's either dyan, kasi pareho silang may i3. O, i-substitute natin. See? Substitute the value of i3 to equation number 1 to determine the value of i1. So, 58 minus 4i1 minus 3i3 is equals to 0. Substitute. So, 58 minus 4i1 minus 3i3 is equals to 6 is equals to 0. So, 58 minus 4i1, 3 multiplied by 6 is negative 18 is equals to 0. Okay? Then, 58 minus 18 is equals to, lipat ito, magiging positive 4i1. 58 minus 18 is equals to 40. So, 40 is equals to 4i1 and then divided by both side by yung kasama ni i1 which is equals to 4. 4. Cancel. Cancel. Now, you have your value of i1 which is equals to 10 ampere. So, meron ka ng i3 and then meron ka ng i1, pwede mo na makuha yung value ni i2. So, substitute the value of, pareho din, substitute the value of i3 to equation number 2. Equation number 2 is negative 10 plus 2i2 plus 3i3 is equals to 0. Substitute. Negative 10 plus 2i2 plus 3i3 is equals to 6 is equals to 0. So, negative 10 plus 2i2 plus 18 is equals to 0. And then, negative 10 plus 18 is equals to, from positive magiging negative. So, negative 2i2 and then, negative 10 and then, ito ay 18. So, magiging 8. Positive. Is equals to negative 2i2 and then divided by both side by negative 2, negative 2. Cancel, cancel. Now, for the current 2, ang value niya is negative 4 ampere. May negative 4 ampere ba? Wala. So, ibig sabihin, yung kanina, si I1 is entering the junction, I2 is entering the junction, and then I3 is leaving the junction. So, ibig sabihin, yung assumption mo ng flow ng current for I2, baliktad. Ibig sabihin, dapat siya is palabas or leaving the junction. Para makuha mo ngayon na tama yung sagot mo for I1, I2, and then the I3, i-check mo ngayon yan to the meaning or the definition of the KCL or the Kirchhoff's current law. So, the summation of the current along the circuit is equals to 0 or the leaving and then the entering the junction. So, pwede yun for the checking. Now, gamitin ngayon natin yung equation number 3 na entering is I1, entering si I2 for the assumption, and then leaving si I3 is equals to 0. Substitute the value. I1 is equals to 10. I2 is negative 4. So, negative 4. And then I3 is positive 6. Pero, siya is leaving. So, minus 6 is equals to 0. So, 10 minus 10 is equals to 0. So, 0 is equals to 0. So, ganun din yun. Ngayon, kung gagamitin mo naman the other definition of the KCL, the summation of the current along the circuit, ito yun. Kung ito naman ang gagamitin mo, so, entering is also equal to the leaving. I1 plus I2 is equals to I3. I3 is the leaving the junction, and then I1 and I2 is entering the junction. I1 is equals to 10, and then I2 is equals to negative 4, and then I3 is equals to 6. So, 10 minus 4 is equals to 6. 6 is equals to 6. That is for the leaving is also equal to the entering the junction. Or, the summation of the current along the circuit is equals to 0.